Thank you. It's one of the most familiar phrases people use. It appears in small moments throughout the day at shop counters, at doorways, in messages, in passing exchanges that last only a few seconds before everyone moves on. Thank you. Sometimes it is said with warmth, sometimes quickly, almost automatically, sometimes before the other person has even finished what they were doing. It doesn't draw attention to itself. It's expected, almost invisible in how often it appears. And yet, if it disappeared entirely, people would notice immediately. At first, it looks simple, a small gesture of appreciation, a way of acknowledging that someone has done something for you. But the more often it appears, the more difficult it becomes to tell what it really means. There was someone who always said thank you. Not occasionally, not selectively, consistently. To the person at the till, to the driver who slowed slightly to let them cross, to someone who held a door, to someone who passed them something across a table, to messages that didn't necessarily require a response. Thank you. It wasn't exaggerated. It wasn't overly expressive, just present, reliable. People described them as polite, considerate, easy to interact with, and that was true. But what no one really noticed, not even the person themselves at first, was how automatic it had become. The phrase arrived quickly, without hesitation, sometimes before they had fully registered what had been done. A door opens. Thank you. A receipt is handed over. Thank you. A small favor is completed. Thank you. There was no decision point, no pause to ask, do I feel grateful right now? The phrase existed ahead of the feeling. At first, this didn't seem unusual, because most people do the same. Politeness is built on shared expectations. Certain words appear in certain places, almost like markers that keep interactions moving smoothly. Please, sorry, thank you. Without them, things feel abrupt, unfinished, so people use them. Not always because they feel something specific, but because the absence of them would be noticeable. The person who always said thank you had learned this early, not as a rule that was explained, more as a pattern that became clear over time. People responded better when those words were present. Interactions felt lighter, easier, and so the habit formed. Not forced, not conscious, just consistent. For a long time it worked. People appreciated it, even if they didn't say so directly, because politeness has a quiet effect. It smooths the edges of everyday interactions. It removes friction. It creates a sense that things are functioning as they should. But like many things that work well, it also disappears. Nobody comments on the presence of expected behavior, only its absence. You notice when someone doesn't say thank you. You remember it. You might even feel it. A small pause, a slight discomfort. That was interesting. The absence of gratitude felt noticeable, but the presence of it didn't. The person who always said thank you began to notice this slowly, not all at once, just in small observations. They noticed how often the phrase appeared in their own speech, how quickly it arrived, how rarely it required thought. They also noticed something else. Sometimes after saying it, they weren't entirely sure what they had meant by it. Not that it was false, but that it had arrived too quickly to carry a specific feeling. It was more like a reflex than a reflection. This didn't feel like a problem, just something to notice. Because there were also moments when the feeling was clear, a genuine sense of appreciation, a small pause where the words came slightly slower, but with more weight. Thank you. Those moments felt different, quieter, more deliberate. And yet, from the outside, they looked exactly the same. That was the curious part. The same phrase could carry real appreciation, mild acknowledgement, social habit, or simply the absence of discomfort. And there was no visible difference between them. The person who always said thank you began to wonder when the meaning mattered. Did the words need to carry feeling every time? Or was their role something else entirely? Because in many situations, thank you wasn't really about expressing deep appreciation. It was about recognizing a moment, closing a small interaction, signaling that something had been received. In that sense, it worked more like punctuation than emotion. A full stop at the end of a small exchange. And punctuation doesn't need to carry feeling to serve its purpose. It simply marks the structure of communication. That made the habit easier to understand. But it also raised a quieter question. If gratitude becomes automatic, does it lose meaning? Or does its meaning simply shift? Because there is another way to look at it. Perhaps saying thank you consistently isn't about expressing a strong feeling each time. Perhaps it's about maintaining a shared environment, a small signal that says, I see what just happened. I recognize it. We're still moving together. Even if the feeling behind it is light. In that sense, the phrase still carries value, just not always the value people assume. The person who always said thank you didn't stop. They didn't decide to only say it when they felt something deeply that would have felt unnatural. Instead, they became aware of the difference. The quick thank you, the thoughtful thank you, the habitual one, the quiet one. They all remained. But now, occasionally, there was a pause, a small moment, where the words arrived a fraction slower. Not forced, not exaggerated, just noticed. And in those moments, something shifted. Not dramatically, but enough to feel the difference between saying something and meaning something. At the same time, they also noticed something else. Not everyone experiences gratitude the same way. Some people express it frequently. Some people express it rarely. Some show it through words, others through actions. Which means that what looks like a lack of gratitude is not always a lack of appreciation. And what looks like constant gratitude is not always deep feeling. The words alone don't tell the full story. They never did. The person who always said thank you continued through their days much the same as before. Doors opened, thank you. Items passed across counters, thank you. Messages exchanged, thank you. But now, alongside the habit, there was a quiet awareness that these small words were doing more than expressing feeling. They were maintaining something, a rhythm, a shared understanding, a social ease that most people rely on without thinking about it. And occasionally they carried something more, a moment of genuine appreciation that didn't need to be louder to be real, just slightly more present. Which leaves the question hanging, not inside the story, but outside it, with you. When you say thank you, how often do you notice the feeling behind it? What role does thank you play in your everyday interactions? How do you usually recognize appreciation in others? What makes a moment of gratitude feel real to you?